Hello and welcome back to day 15 of our 90 days data analytics challenge. I hope you enjoyed your 24 hours break from hearing anything on data analysis. I know how difficult it is to show up every day, to stay consistent, and I am so proud of you if you made it this far. Let me give you a quick motivation. Last year, I decided to show up for myself every day and it changed my life. It changed my life for good. So if you stay consistent, trust me, you cannot do something consistently and you will not get anything out of it. But another thing is, when you are doing something consistently, you're working so hard, then you have to include smartness in whatever you're doing. Being smart is the way you're learning this data analytics challenge. You're currently on the data analytics challenge. You want to connect with people, right? You want to go on LinkedIn, start talking about your training. This is what I've learned so far from the 90 days data analytics challenge. I'm learning with Babalola Oluwatosi. If you wish, I'm on LinkedIn, you can connect with me. So you can keep sharing your progress. The data cleaning we did in the last class, if you're in the paid community, I'm sure you'd have access to the data that you can work with. You can post that, okay, this is the data cleaning I did. I checked for blank spaces and worked on it accordingly. I checked for duplicates. I used the functions in Excel to clean my data. All of these things, you post it, you put it out there so that at the time you are done with the 90 days challenge, you are not just looking for a job or looking for who to connect with, all of those things. You already have like people following your progress. And don't be discouraged if on LinkedIn or Twitter you are posting and nobody is engaging with it. It's totally normal, right? Just see it as a norms, right? Just put it at the back of your mind that people are watching. They might not react to your post or anything, but trust me, they are watching. So let's not waste our time. Let's get straight to today's tutorial. So today we want to talk about how we can understand pivot table. What are pivot tables? What do we use them for? So before we proceed with this class, I'm here in Kaggle. I just want to look for a data set that we can use to explain pivot table. After you sign up to the website, you can just search. You can come here to the search and search for a particular topic. So let's say I'm looking for something on Superstore data. So let's just try to search something on Superstore. Then you click on this data set so that it filters out only data sets. I think we should check this one out. Okay, so with growing demands, blah, 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 you can read up so this is the metadata we discussed in other classes. Okay, I think we can just practice the pivot table with this data set. Okay, this is what the data set looks like. All right, I think we can work with this. You just come here to download the data set, download metadata zip. All right, so and then I'm going to open the file now so we can get started with the explanation on pivot tables. So I just opened the data set in Excel. After downloading it, I just clicked open file. But you can see right here we have a warning, possible data loss. So if the file you downloaded is a CSV file, so CSV is like comma separated value, if I'm not mistaken. So you have to change it to an Excel file if you are working in Excel. The disadvantage of not saving it as an Excel workbook file is that if you work on a CSV file and you are done with all your analysis, your data cleaning, and you think you saved the file, the next time you open it, all the analysis you did might not be effective on the file again. So you first want to save it as an Excel workbook file before you start working on it at all. So how can I do that? I can click on this save as, and if you can't see any of this warning, you can come here to the file, then you see save as right here. Okay, so I'm just going to use the shortcut and just click save as here. So you see save as here, right? And then you can pick wherever you want to save it in. So let's say I want to save it under documents. Okay, let's just save it here. So the file name, I want to call it Superstore, all right? And then you can see it's currently a CSV file. I'll click on this drop down and I'll change it to Excel workbook. That's just the that's basically what I'm talking about. So then we can save it. All right, so let's talk about what pivot table is. Pivot table app is a powerful tool in Excel. It helps us to summarize large data sets. For example, we have a large data set here. we can decide to like summarize it. You can see this is a large, over 9,000 rows of data exactly. This is what I'm talking about that you work with in the real world. So it also summarizes large data sets. It helps us reorganize data dynamically. It helps us analyze trends and patterns with ease. And it helps us create quick reports with formulas. Okay, so when do we use a pivot table? We use a pivot table when we need to count or get the total value. Let's say we want to know the total quantity that they've purchased from us so far. Like, we can use pivot table to get that very fast. So it also helps us to group data in categories. So let's first expand this data. So for example, we have this ship mode. It has categorical, it's a categorical data type, right? We have second class, standard class. So if you want to quickly group it into categories, pivot table can help us do that. It helps us compare values side by side, and we can quickly drill down into data quickly. Let me show you how you can create a pivot table with this data set quickly. So first, you want to select this A1 cell. Then you can do Ctrl A to highlight the entire data set or select the entire data set. Then you can come here to the insert in the ribbon tab, remember. Then you can click on, under tables, you click on pivot table. When you click on pivot table, it's going to ask you if you want the pivot table to be on a new worksheet. New worksheet is when you click on this plus sign and it opens a new worksheet, remember. But everything will still be in just one workbook. So you can either put it in a new worksheet or you can put it in existing worksheet. Existing worksheet means you still want the pivot table to be in this same worksheet. So let me put it in a new worksheet. It's more preferable to put it in a new worksheet. So I can say okay. So you can see it's opened a new worksheet for me that I can now have my pivot table. I like to rename my sheets so that whenever I come back to it, I know which one is which. I don't just mix it up. So I can just name these pivot tables. So there are basically some key terms you need to know when you are working with the pivot table. If you look to this side, you see something like pivot table fields. You're going to see filters, columns, rows, values. If you click out here, you will not see that pivot table field. So you have to click on the pivot table you have to be able to see this. Let's say after creating your pivot table, you made a mistake and you just cancelled it like this. All right. All you have to do is keep it selected. Then come to pivot table analyze here. Under the show, you're going to see field list. So just select it. It's going to open it up back to you. Okay, so let's get familiar with some of the key terms we use when working with pivot table. Let's start with these rows. When you want to work with rows, it means that you want to have categories that you want to group. So for example, looking at our data set, I talked about, I think we have something like country. If we have different country, you can group it. These segments, we can group it. So you can see we have it as consumer, home office, blah, 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 corporate. I can just come to the pivot table and drag it in that segment. So I can just look for it, segment here, and drag it to the row. So it's going to group it. Only 3 categories is what we have there. And you can see it just grouped the 3 categories, right? So this column is like a subcategory. So row is like the category we want to group. We already grouped it. So let's say we want to have like a subcategory under this these segments that we already have. Okay, the columns represent the subcategory, the rows is the category. So for the category, I've added the segments, which is showing here. I told you this, where you have this number is what we define as the row. And this letter, if we have it like this, that's the column, right? So you can see that we just added the segments to the rows, to categorize it, to group it, and then we added the region to the column. So the region is the central, east, south, west. So we have values. These values represent what we are calculating. So most times this value is mostly numerical data type columns that we always put in the values. We can also add categorical data actually. So let's look for a numerical column. Okay, so we have sales, we have quantity. I think we should use sales. I can just look for the sales. This is the part where you have all the columns that you can see from the original data. So the sales, I can drag it to the value because it's numerical. Can you see? So it's going to calculate the breakdown for the sales for consumer in the central region. So we can say that consumers in the central region now, the total sales is about 252k. In the east region, the consumer in the east region, this is their total sales. The corporate in the central region, this is their total sales, and on like that. From this data set that looks like it has no meaning, see what we just created. So pivot table it helps you to summarize large data set like very quickly. And if this looks too complex for you, let me remove the columns. You can see this is just a simple pivot table that shows the total sales for each segment. You can see the consumer segment, the corporate, and the home office segment. And also, I can try to arrange it. I think it's currently arranged from highest to lowest. If it is not arranged, remember the sorting we talked about. You can just right click on the first one, sort it. Let me sort from smallest to largest. You can see that the consumer segment was the one that generated the highest sales for us in our company, followed by the corporate, followed by the home office. So this is just how we gain insights into data. Your company might be asking you that what segment should they restock more, or should they invest more in? Now you know that it's the consumer segment from the data set you downloaded. But remember that in this video, I'm only explaining pivot table. It's not like we are doing a full analysis. Remember that if you want to work on a full data analysis project, then we are starting with the ask phase, the prepare phase, the process phase. You remember that, right? So I'm still going to walk you through a project from start to finish, but this particular data set is only to explain data analysis, that's using pivot tables. So I could rename this. Let's say I have sum of sales. I don't want to get the sum of sales. I want it to be total sales. I want it to be showing me total sales right here. I could double click here and change it. You see custom name. I'm just going to type total sales right there. All right. And also you could choose the type of calculation. Let's say it's not the sum you are trying to get. You want to get the average. All right. You can change it to average and then click OK. It's gonna get the average for the sales, not the total sales. The long way to do it is to come here under values, click on the drop down and click value field settings. It's going to open the same tab, but that is the short format. And let's say you have 223.7333 something. You want to change it to like 2 decimal place or something. You can easily just click this number format here. And then you can change it to number. If it is a currency, you can change it to currency, and you can just do whatever you want right here for the formatting, right? You can see now that it changed to 2 decimal place because I added 2 decimal place at that point. So if you want to change it back to the total sales, you can just calculate the sum of the total sales and click OK. Right here, we also have filters. What do we use filters for? It's basically used to limit data. So let's say I want to see the total segment of the total sales for this by segment, but I want to filter it out by the different states that we have. I can drag the states to the filter section. All right, and you can see right there it added like a funnel that I can click on. If I click on it, I can say, okay, I want to see the total sales by segments for only Alabama. So I'm going to click that and say okay. It's gonna, you see the number reduced. So this is the total sales for only Alabama. In Alabama, the corporate is more, followed by the consumer, followed by the home office. I can say, okay, I want to see for another state. Let me say I want to see for here. Can you see? So this is for, so filter will just help you show you what you want to see. Another thing I said the other time is that you don't just put numerical data in the value section. You can also put categorical data, which is like textual, right? So I can remove those values. Let's first remove this one. And then let me try to put, okay, this one that has category, like let's put it in the value. So it's going to just count the categories. So we can see that we have 47 categories in this segment region. We have 27 in the corporate. We have 12 in the home office. So that's just what that one is going to do. And you can decide to add the category to the column as well so that you can see the full breakdown. So in the consumer, for consumers, they got like 4 furnitures. Consumers got 36 office supplies. Corporate got 6 furniture. Not just numeric data type that you can add to the values, right? Any data that involves category, like you can segment it into categories like bookcases, chair, labels. You can put it in categories. Categorical data type, basically, you can also use them for your values, right? All right, so and if you want to create another pivot table, you don't need to go here, go to insert again and create. No, you don't need to do that. All you have to do is come to this pivot table. So I'm supposed to copy everything like this together with the filter. So let's copy. You can paste it anywhere you want. All right, And now let me just try to remove the filter first. So you can just remove everything when you copy and paste it, and then you can go on with your second analysis. So let's say I want to know the ship mode. So this is the 4 different ship mode that we have. I want to know the quantity of products that went for each of the ship mode, right? You can see that the ship mode that people use more is the standard class. It took out more quantity of products from our company. So this is just how to gain quick analysis using our data sets. The beautiful thing about creating pivot table and all of this in Excel is that you can refresh your data. So let's say they made any changes to this data set. Maybe I changed this sales, I changed it to, let's say I changed it to 6. All right, I can just come here and I'll just come here to like refresh my data. I can just right click here and refresh. It's going to affect every changes that we have on this worksheet. It's going to affect it right on the pivot table. And remember, you'll be creating your charts and dashboard from the pivot table. So once you refresh your pivot table, your dashboard too will be refreshed. All right. So another thing you can do if you are working with a data set that you would be updating constantly and you want the pivot table to keep updating, instead of doing Control A that I mentioned earlier, this is what you should do instead. Okay, so what you can do is you can just highlight the entire data columns like this. The reason why I said you should highlight the entire column like this is if you come down here and you keep adding data downward, it's going to be effective on that pivot table. But the style I used the other time is just going to end here. So if you add data underneath the row, it will not be effective on the pivot table, right? So if you know that is a data set that you still want to add more rows to and you want it to update, then it's better to highlight it the way I just did. Okay, so we are done for today's class, and if you're in the paid community, you have access to the data set you can work with that you can also send in when you are done analyzing. If you're not in the paid community because you cannot afford to, that's totally understandable. You can go to Kaggle just the way I did at the beginning of this tutorial and try to get a data set that you just want to practice with. In summary, pivot table is fast, flexible, and powerful, as you can see, and it is ideal for summarizing and reporting. So in the next class, we are going to explain advanced pivot tables. We are still on pivot table, but we are going into the advanced part of creating pivot tables. And don't forget to join the paid community if you want to get certified that you participated in the 90 days data analytics challenge. You want to join a community where when you are confused, you see people to help you out, and you have direct access to me where you can ask me questions on anything related to data analysis. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have fun and make sure you practice everything we discussed today. Bye.